Early in 1965, he's turned out his first fanzine, Vega, printed and distributed by the BSFA, a British amateur science fiction publishing association, thrown himself headlong into the bitchy, blotchy, endlessly enthusiastic circle jerk of small press magazines, as yet still unaware how closely he is following the fatal H.P. Lovecraft template. In the Charles Platt edited Beyond, he first reads of the new Yank comic books, Stan Lee's crowd-pleasing formula of omnipotent losers. Yeah, you may be Nordic god of thunder, but you've got a gammy leg. You'd trade your spider senses and ability to run up walls for just 10 minutes tops and fingers. Mythic beings wearing science fiction pants against a mournful and distressed Jack Kirby Bowery, paranoid Steve Ditko skyline. How can he resist? Immersing himself in the garish newsprint flood that crosses the Atlantic by erratic spurts as ballast, he drinks in the warm new smell of raw America. Swiftly acquiring a discerning eye, he gravitates towards the somehow more distinguished product issuing from out the stable of Stan Lee's main rival, former Lovecraft literary agent Julius Schwartz. The science fiction here is old school, classical, romantic, perfect men and women on a field of stars described with clean lines. Carmine Infantino's Cadillac Smooth Sweep or Gil Kane's Michelangelo Anatomies, weightless in sculpted plastic space. He's hooked. And, meeting amiable Brummy proto-comic fan Phil Clark at 1965's London-based World SF convention, he decides to put together the UK's first comics fanzine, Kapow No. 1, dot-screened Adam West onomatopoeia, Roneo spirit duplicated, purple carbon process, ghostly violet pages with a methylated bomb site tang. In 1967, fired by new resolve, he says goodbye to rank Hovis McDougall, goodbye to Louise or Barbara, and seeks employment in the funhouse. 17, and hanging up his flower grader's hat to work as office boy for Oddham's Press. Everyone tells him it's a bad idea. He starts there on May 1st to find HQ closed for the public holiday when he calls to collect his documents. Free games for May. A jumpy hippie kid, his chestnut hair cautiously inching past his collar, wallflower in the perfumed garden. Within 3 months he's the junior sub-editor of POW, Oddham's endearingly club-footed stab at duplicating Stan Lee's meteoric rise on this side of the pond. Here, he hooks up with the evolving backbone of a future British comics scene. Steve Parkhouse and Mike Higgs, Kevin O'Neill, a pre-Raphaelite Barry Windsor Smith, and has to suffer an alliterative nickname in the slavishly reprised Smiling Stan style of Marvel Comics in the US. Sonny Steve Moore, with the planetary attribution so exactly wrong. Co-organiser of the first comics convention in this country, he is founder to an institution he will one day shun in horror, but back then it still seems such a good idea. He's hanging out at Britain's first comics and science fiction bookshop, Dark They Were and Golden-Eyed, a shimmering joss-stick-scented thug in Bedfordsbury, then in Berwick Street, the offices of International Times next door, with Charles Shaw Murray or Mick Farron dropping in to pick up that month's Silver Surfer, or swap counterculture quips across the counter with Bram Stokes, the archetypal bead-strung freak proprietor. By 1968, he's corresponding with Bob Rickard, who, within 5 years, will launch the Falling Fishes and Spontaneous Combustion Journal, 40 Times. He's glorying in the fizz of new ideas, new music, men upon the moon. In 1969, I meet him for the first time, marvelling at his lunar lack of mental gravity, the slow and lazy arc of his creative leaps, the silver-dusted plumes boiling up around his shoes, one small step for a man. By now, the exponential creep of his collection, comic books, paperbacks, pulps, fan publishing detritus, has necessitated a forced seizure of the big back bedroom from his elder brother, Chris, who's banished to the box room, a comfort-fit coffin just across the tiny landing. Chris is 26 by now, offsetting the swung cat-free claustrophobia of his sleeping quarters with employment in the real world downhill, in his father's footsteps, with a job at the Hercules Powder Company that Frederick Bohms has by that time become. He'll stay there for another 13 years, then move to bar work for a while before he finds his true vocation as groundskeeper at the golf club, tidying the greens where his dad's rocket battery was once positioned, crouched absorbed over his work beneath that merciless expanse of sky, pushing his chipped nails down into black soil, into the root gauze, grounding himself, earthing. While way back in 1969, back home in Chris's former room, his younger sibling makes a fair fist at accomplishing its opposite. An ivy carpeting of bookshelves has already claimed 2 walls for A. Van Vogt, Bradbury, Charles Harness, E.C. Tubb, Abe Merritt, the unusual suspects. Covers mad with pink sand cities and princesses, vacuum cleavage, chrome-dipped interplanetary cock, forever Saturn. Under the already sagging single bed, his funny books are stacked. The lyric ray gun romance Adam Strange, the EC science fantasies, Wally Wood's polythene-wrapped space girls with transsolar darkness pooling under their amazing racks. Al Williamson's bright hypodermic cities soaring out of duotone-fogged fungus jungle to impale the nebulae. Insidious 4-colour radiation seeps up through the mattress from the piling pages, incubating benign crystal wireless tumours in the dozing brain, and through the fast glass of his new room's wide rear window, London crawls like animators putty. The post office tower, Canary Wharf, the dome, the wheel, the gherkin, blossoming and melting in the Dandair spaceport seethe of the horizon. He begins to see the city from the opera box perspective of a Chinese print, starts looking down upon it. In 2005, his closed lids dart and flicker, shifty REM, the thin skin blinds drawn hurriedly upon a Jungian suburban orgy going on below. Restless, he lifts from the untroubled, blissful deep sleep sine wave dip of the late 60s into the uncertain toss and turn to come. In early 1969, Oddams is folded into Fleetway Publishing, IPC magazines being the resultant amalgam, and he's one of the few staffers to survive the move. A close call, and an impetus towards diversifying, adding new strings to a bow he hopes to change by stealth into a harp. Commences writing scripts for comic weeklies, bonsai screenplays. Wonder Car, with art supplied by boyhood god Ron Turner, chief delineator of mid-50s cosmic cop Rick Random, prescient name marking the future as a threshold of complexity. The 1970s are waxing, and in his spare time he's working on superior fan publication Orpheus with Barry Smith, Steve Parkhouse, Ian Gibson, an experimental flux of words and images attempting to wring some kind of poetic from decaying orbits, damaged drives. 72, in January, on a rare frost-bitten visit to Bob Rickard's place in Birmingham, he hits upon the winning mix of cannabis and late-night Hong Kong action flicks during a showing of The Sword, directed by and starring the adaptable Wang Yu. Between Mandarin talons, yellow magic grips his heart, and he goes overboard, goes oriental mental, and subscribes to China Reconstructs, pesters his Uncle Don, the book importer, for impressive hardback tomes on Chinese history to crowd out the ace doubles, launching into a lifelong affair with the I Ching, eventual fellowship of the Royal Asiatic Society. Everything changes at the midnight matinee, at the box office with its moving lines. Fate hits the freeze frame, and the coins hang in the winter air.